Welcome to Potentiality, a space for big questions, deep conversations, and shared wisdom around the most meaningful thing we do as human beings, which is how we parent and educate the next generation. I am so excited to introduce our guest today, Dr. Mariné Avagyan, a leadership expert, consultant, and coach with a strong background in education and organizational leadership. With over 3 decades in education, she has supported young people, educators, leaders, and organizations in cultivating human-centered leadership, integrating clarity, communication, mindset, and purposeful action with self-awareness and intentional growth. Her work bridges practical leadership with deeper inner development, making it both highly applicable and deeply transformative. Welcome, Marne. It's such an honor to have you here today.
Thank you. I'm thrilled to be here. I appreciate the invitation and I look forward to our enriching conversation.
Thank you so much for sharing this space with me. Today, we're going to be talking about self-leadership for youth in the age of AI, topic that is you're very intimately familiar with when it comes to leadership with your background. And the reason I wanted to discuss with you and really have your expertise and your wisdom in this space is because I recently conducted a survey for teenagers and their parents. And one theme that stood out over and over among parent concerns is how quickly the current generation is outsourcing their thinking to AI. And this is a valid concern. I know it can be all consuming. It's easy, to get your not only homework done, but actually help AI make decisions for you and so many other things. So while as adults, we're very intentional in the way we use it, for youth that is still developing their core and their leadership capacity, this could really be a concerning topic. So I really wanted to open the space for us to explore this deeper and maybe provide some practical insights for the audience today.
Absolutely. Yes, this is definitely a prime time for this conversation.
So let's frame it by starting what self-leadership for youth really means beyond productivity and discipline. I know those are things that are highly emphasized in the modern life, particularly through school. And so, what does self-leadership really mean, especially for young people in this day and age?
So when I hear self-leadership for young people, I don't think about discipline or productivity first. I think about their ability to truly direct their own attention, to regulate their internal state, and to make decisions that are truly aligned with what it really means to them, what really matters to them. In the last 10, 15 years, so much has changed. And there was a time where we used to prepare young people for a world where information was limited. As educators, we were about contributors to their knowledge base. We are in a different time now. And today, they're growing up in a world where information is constant, it's immediate, and often it's quite overwhelming. So that's why it's really important that we focus not so much on those factual productivity types of learning, but really about how do we help and challenge our youth to build within them the sense of discernment, where they can truly discern what is it that I am learning from this and how does this matter to me and what would my response be based on that. So that's how I would define self-leadership. And that is the ability to remain internally directed in a world that's constantly trying to direct you from outside with these external forces, which now certainly AI and technology have increased.
Mhm. Thank you so much for unpacking it so well. Really, the influence today, not only the external world, which is, it used to be friends and, school, neighbors, the peers. Right now, it's more algorithmically driven. So there's a clear agenda in many cases behind that external influence. And a lot of our youth spend a lot of time engaging with technology. So they can't really escape, but being constantly in some sort of interaction with the algorithms that drive oftentimes their choices and decisions. So you speak about discernment. So I really want us to dig deeper a little bit. How do they really learn to discern? Like, what are some uniquely human capacities that they really need to develop in order to be able to discern the information? There's a lot of contradictory, false information, and yet it drives oftentimes their choices, their preferences, their decision making. So, how do we really equip our youth with that ability to discern? What type of a capacity they need to develop? What skills do they need to acquire? How does that work?
So AI can generate answers. It can
Mhm.
summarize information. It can even make recommendations with and without hallucinations, right? But it cannot assign meaning. It
Mhm.
cannot hold values. It cannot take responsibility. So I think that's where that human work becomes so critical. What young people need today is not just that intelligence, but like I said, it's that discernment. We want them to build that ability to ask, is this true? Does this align with who I am? Should I act on this? Because while AI can produce a lot of outputs, it can't decide what is worth becoming. And this is where we're talking about the youth who are in that state of establishing their identity. They are becoming the adult that we will have in our world, contributing to our society, our communities, and so on. So it is really important that we are working towards creating those opportunities, both at home and in their learning environment, with their capacity to think through before going to the AI quick output source. And if young people don't develop that internal compass, that critical internal compass, while they may become very efficient, they're not necessarily going to be very grounded. And for a truly functional human being who's contributing to this world and contributing to themselves, the goodness of their own future, we want them to find that groundedness within themselves.
What I find with my clients is there is this lack of trust to their inner voice, right? Even when they feel something, they know something about themselves, it's so easy to get kind of derailed from that and be presented with so many other options. Oftentimes, they're way more valid because there's so many other. It's very present, right, in the world, especially through social media. And I find them really struggling to connect that inner guidance and trust more than anything, even if they hear the voice. They oftentimes don't trust it, they override it, and they make decisions that are the norm, what the society, particularly the technology-driven space, actually recommends and what many others do. And so that becomes their compass. And what ends up happening, they are completely on a different trajectory from who they truly are. And their authenticity is really at stake, which then starts creating a lot of challenges. The friends that they surround themselves with, the career path that they end up choosing, even the partner that they end up choosing, it's all because they continuously override this inner knowing only because the external output is so loud and fast and overwhelming.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we've done a really good job of developing their capabilities when it comes to just basic skills and knowledge, learning, right? When it comes to academia.
Mhm.
But I don't think we've really tackled that deeper identity development consciously, intentionally. That has been lacking. And I would say in the field of education, we've often seen students as empty vessels, which has
Mhm.
been the one term I have always disliked,
Mhm.
because they're not empty vessels. However, when we're approaching it from that perspective that I am I, as the educator, know it all. I, as the parent, know it all. So I am here to fill this empty vessel with all this knowledge. We're discounting the fact that they are human beings, that are developing identity through the subconscious experiences that they're having. Not just what we're doing to them, but what they're experiencing just by living with us in our presence. And that is having significant impact when we now pair that with this AI, which seems to a young mind giving them all the answers. It seems to have all the solutions. It seems to know them better than anyone in most cases. And it seems to just agree with them on everything and be pleasant. Therefore, in many ways, it's taking away from them that sense of challenge. So what our young people have today, as I see, as I work with administrators and I work with teachers, they know how to be high achieving. They know how to perform well. They know how to do all of that. But that internal uncertainty is coming from that lack of opportunity to really struggle with challenge. And AI has now completely gotten in the way of that because instead of me really tackling this and thinking through and working through this problem, I'm just going to type it in the AI and see what it will tell me. So now that through that algorithm, it has now redirected my focus and it has taken away that struggle. So for me, in this case, is really important for us to really build that young person's agency. We've worked on competence, but it's really important that we work on their agency for them to have this ability to know that you have a choice. Your choice matters. Your values matter. And it's okay to express those. And it's okay to be uncertain about things and have a conversation about uncertainty. When we are promoting a high achieving space, learning space, we are disallowing uncertainty to be present. Because if I am expected to be high achiever, I cannot be unsure about what I'm saying. I cannot be questioning what I'm saying. So allowing for that uncertainty to percolate, to actually come to life and be expressed is important. And that's what gives that young person the agency that, wow, I could actually sort this out. I could actually grapple with this and get to the other end of it. Now, I think of this as when we have a toddler and those toddler games where they have to fit a certain puzzle piece into like a triangle into the triangle shape or the square into the square shape. Imagine if we went there and just did it for them. We just took away their agency, right? That's the piece that gives that human agency that I can struggle with this. I can do it multiple times until maybe even slam it in there until it fits. But that's what gives me, wow, I did it. And that is what helps with addressing the uncertainties because now I'm like, well, I have experience of having gone through the challenge and have accomplished it. I can do that again. Right? So we are building capable young people, but the deeper question is, are we really building self-trusting young people who are ready for the world ahead?
And that is exactly my mission. You elaborated so well on that. What wholeness education tries to do is to cultivate the inner architecture, and I call it of the future human, because the youth that we're working or raising now, they are the future human who will be shaping our collective future. And you just mentioned something, and I think it kind of hit the nail on the head. You said the ability to be with that discomfort of the unknown, right? Because we're constantly performance driven, and that is the expectation, that's the norm. And our youth, I find they don't know how to be with that discomfort. And that because I don't think they ground enough. You said it really ties to how grounded you feel in this world and in your reality. So, what I understand is those are actual skills, just like the academic skills. These are skills that need to be explicitly taught and practiced, just like everything else that we do in education. Am I right in my understanding of what you're
Absolutely.
saying?
Absolutely. I think those are the skills that are really important for us to embrace in our teaching practice, but also embrace in our parenting.
Mhm.
If a child is in a home, a young person is in a home where uncertainty is not valued by the adults, because children are always listening. They're always listening. Even if they're in another room, they're always listening and observing and watching, and they're picking up the cues of what is valued in this home or not. And if the adults themselves are not allowing uncertainty to be okay in the home, to be questioned, and the only thing that's celebrated is that performative experience, that achievement, then they don't see how they can bring this up. So same thing in the classroom. If it's
Mhm.
only about the grades, it's only about finishing something, finishing a project, finishing, it's about completeness, then the learning experience gets missed out. And learning is about starting from the unknown, going through the maze of challenges and doubts and questions to get to the other side and saying, wow, I learned this because of that experience. So I think it is important that we truly embrace one as adults ourselves, that uncertainty is okay. And I can tell you, working with the adults, there are many who do not want to deal with the uncertainty.
Mhm.
They really struggle. So it does not surprise me that young people are dealing with this because they're around the adults who are in the same space. So I think really important for us to embrace it as adults first, and to invite it in our homes, invite it in our classrooms, allow for that struggle and celebrate the struggle so that they can see, that's okay. We went through this and that's okay.
Mhm. And that really is about creativity because when you're grappling with something difficult and you are okay with the uncertainty and with the discomfort in the process, because you're speaking about learning is a process. We oftentimes treat it as a finished product, but it's actually a process. So just being comfortable with the discomfort in the process is really what creativity is about because nothing has been created just really quick without any challenges, without the exploration, the iterative process over and over. And so I really want you to speak, what are the real, like very tangible, real risks if our youth outsources their thinking, their decision making, not really trusting their voice, but also their creativity
So,
to AI,
yeah.
particularly?
So one thing I want to say is that I don't think necessarily the issue is AI itself, but it's how it's being used.
Mhm.
I think there are three risks that we really want to pay attention to. One of them is, this is nothing new. It's been talked about in research before. It's cognitive offloading.
Mm.
This is when young people start to outsource their thinking instead of strengthening their thinking. With cognitive offloading, we are really hindering the development of that child's brain because, again, it's those neurons are connecting and they are expanding, those connections are expanding because of the challenge that the brain is experiencing, all of the different thinking. So when we're doing the cognitive offloading, passing it on, outsourcing it, we are preventing ourselves from that opportunity to really grow those connections in our brain. The second one I would say is, as I mentioned already, is that reduced tolerance for struggle. If I don't struggle enough in my life, the first time I hit a struggle, I'm going to panic.
Mhm.
And with young people, they're young, they're still developing, so they may not have all of the tools to tackle the struggle if they have not learned how to get through it in a supportive space like the classroom or the home.
Mhm.
So it's really important that they're given this opportunity to work through something. If everything becomes instant, then we lose that developmental process.
Mhm.
The third one I would say is definitely the risk is on their identity,
Mhm.
because when we're outsourcing everything for our just answers, whether it's, ideas, decisions, expressions, then we're not using our brain as a tool anymore. It's that external tool that's there to fix it. And these become band-aids that are put over gashes that are missing that experience. So really our youth are stepping away from their own development by the way that it's being used. So if everything becomes easy, we may gain speed,
Mhm.
which is what AI gives us, but
Mhm.
we're risking the loss of depth and self-trust, as we had already discussed.
Mhm. Beautifully said. Could not agree more. Now, Marna, you consult large organizations, you coach directors, principals, other administrators in large school districts, in county offices of education. And I'm really curious, what is it that you're observing, or your clients, people that you're working with, are observing in terms of now the AI impact or influence on the emotional and cognitive development? Like, you spoke about the risks, and I'm wondering how much of that is already present, is something that you are working on as you consult or coach those administrators. So what are some shifts that we're seeing in education as AI entering that space more and more? Or are we observing anything yet? Or maybe we're just in the very beginning phase of that.
Mhm. That's a really good question. There's quite a bit of work that's already put out there by different organizations that have done some surveys and some research around youth and educator perspectives on the use of AI. I think since the beginning of AI coming out to today, there's been great progress in how we're bringing this. And there's a lot of great guidance that's being put out to schools, to school districts and county and state organizations in terms of effective uses of AI. And having said that, I think this is still an area of growth for the educators themselves. I have met teachers who have yet to touch AI. When I even mention it, they're like, oh, I don't do that. I don't do that. So there is a level of fear from some people. And as you know, in our field of education, we have several generations in the workplace today. You have everyone
Mhm.
from, the millennials all the way to, we still have some traditionalists in our classrooms, in our
Mhm.
schools. So you have different levels of desire and interest in exploring this, but also with that comes this fear of what this is, because some of them are hearing the scary parts of AI or whatever messaging is being put out there. The other piece of it, some of them are seeing this solely as something that the students are using to cheat, to finish homework.
Mhm.
That's how they see it. But so coming to it from that perspective actually prevents them from being open to how it could be a very effective tool, and in helping the students, guiding the students go through this experience. So while
Mhm.
I am seeing small pockets of advances in the schools and systems that I have been involved with, there's still quite a bit of work to be done. And I think one of the things that I'm passionate about as I work with the adults in the education space, any opportunity to expose our adults to AI usage, to its limitations and to its power. It's a possibilities for students, it's effective use. The more we can bring that to our educators and to the adults, to the parents, then they can for themselves discern how to bring that and make it a useful tool, rather than let the students lead the way, because they are. The students now know more about this technology than the adults do. And sadly, many of them are not using it in the most effective ways that they could, as we discussed already, with all the risks that it creates.
I could not agree more. And I know from my work how deeply AI is integrated now into some academic domains, particularly writing, because it's a higher cognitive skill. So there is more temptation to outsource it to AI. And I think there's a real challenge, especially for those teachers and educators who are teaching creative writing. And we see consistently how more AI given output or text is actually present in the work of students. But I also wanted now to explore the benefits of it and really explore with you how AI could actually be a powerful ally. You almost referenced that in your last answer, but I wanted to go deeper. How can it become a powerful ally in developing self-leadership? Not just those academic capacities, but self-leadership when AI is used consciously. And what does that really mean to use AI consciously, I think, from the lens of young people?
Yes. So AI can definitely be an incredibly powerful tool when used well. That's without a doubt. And it continues to become better and better and better. It can support brainstorming. It can support feedback. It can help with learning, with access. For some of our students, this can really lower the barriers for them. It can create accessibility. It can accelerate that feedback. It can clarify concepts. It can be very powerful. So there's a lot of opportunity there. But I think it's important that we understand and we help our youth understand that there are clear boundaries to it. It is still just a knowledge source, that it really still comes back to we have agency over ourselves, where we decide. The final decision maker is me, not AI. So I always advocate for AI to be used to expand our thinking, but not to replace our thinking. So that we're always keeping this simple discipline in mind. Think first. If you're challenged, if you're doing something, working on something, whether it's an assignment, a project, an essay, a creative writing, whatever it might be, think first for yourself. Just think, what do I know about this? What have I learned about this? What have I heard about this? Use AI second whether to expand your thoughts, to validate something that you may have thought of, to give you another layer of it, and then take time to reflect. Just because AI in a few seconds spat out some answer doesn't mean, oh, it looks really nice. It would have been better than I had written it. That's easy to do. That's the easy way. But really helping our youth and adults say, okay, let me reflect on this. Is this aligned to what I would say? Is this aligned to what I value? Is this how I speak? Is this true? I mean, that's the big one. We continue to see cases come up where people in official positions have used AI to submit material, documents, information as if it is official, and then it turned out that it was inaccurate information that was generated by AI. These are like real things happening. There are headliners out there. And I'm thinking, even our adults, we need to stop and say, is this really true? Being very, I want to say, quote unquote, suspicious of AI. Because that's where it gives us that self-leadership. That's where we are aware of how am I thinking and regulating how I want to respond to that. Because if we really reverse that order, and if AI becomes our starting point on everything, we're going to weaken. We're risking the weakening of every capacity of our young people to really develop. And that's a big concern. And that's a big concern because especially today, our youth need a lot more of the connections and relationships. And AI is only alienating them from those connections and relationships.
Thank you so much for opening that because I wanted to ask that question. But before we go there, you spoke about values. Is this aligned with my values? Is this my voice, right? Because AI can create beautiful content, but is this truly mine? Is this my voice? Or is this coming from my values? And I find that youth oftentimes don't know what their values are. And even if they know, they're not really their values. When you really dig deeper and do certain practices, those are inherited values, those are imposed values, they're not necessarily their values. And I think it becomes really challenging for them to, even if they have the practice of asking the question, is this aligned with my values? If they don't know what their values are, or they haven't really done the work to identify their true authentic values, it is still not getting them anywhere. I don't know what your take is on that. I see that over and over with the teenagers that I work with.
And that is the work that needs to be done. Identifying one's values is a significantly deep work that even some adults have not experienced. One of the things that I do is I start with a new client, if it's in a one-on-one coaching setting, we spend the first 1 or 2 sessions really digging deep into establishing who they are and really going through the different questions for them to really dig deep and say, what do I really stand for? Right? What hill will I die on? What do I want my legacy to be? And these are things I'm doing with the adults, and they struggle with this. Because just exactly like you said, so many of our values are through osmosis observed from our environment, from our family, from our history, from our generational history. I think the more conversations that we can have with youth in helping them dig deeper into what matters to them, what's meaningful to them, the more we can hear their thoughts expressed, which will give us insight into what are they valuing. Just asking a young person, what are your values? They're not going to understand what that is. Many adults can't really verbalize what their values, true values are. People will typically say, I don't like this, I don't like that, versus what I actually value, right? But when we start questioning them around what matters to them, what's important to them, and why some things are important to them, what would be life-changing, they would consider life-changing from their young, brain, you can start hearing the language that comes out from the person as to what values they have been given. Because many of them at that age, I would say, teenage, very few are at that maturity where they're establishing their own values yet. They're just picking up, whether it's from the educators around them, their friends' families, their own families, their grandparents, their movies, whatever those circumstantial, environmental experiences are, that's where they're picking it up from. But the more we can question them, the more they can start to discern things that maybe no one has ever asked them to verbalize. And that's where you start picking up, where are they stuck? Because sometimes those values are the things that create that uncertainty in them. Those values are the things that create that self-doubt, that fear of expression, that inability to make a decision, because they're rooted in those learned values. And from there, we can get them to identify things that actually now matters. So that, again, we're building that agency in them. Oh, I don't have to do it that way. I don't have to think this way. I can think my way. And that is the greatest gift that our youth can get in before they enter the real adult world.
Is really learning who they are in a very grounded, authentic way. And
Absolutely.
that's really the mission. Mariné, I want us to talk a little bit about the topic of the relationship, relationships in the age of AI and technology in general for youth, because as I engage with ChatGPT or Claude or other platforms, I pick up more and more how emotionally intelligent those platforms are becoming, right? In the way they respond to you, acknowledging your emotions or really phrasing. I mean, it's so easy and pleasant to engage with them rather with a lot of people around us. And so I can almost see the temptation to live, like you said, in isolation, because now AI provides, it even meets your emotional needs oftentimes better than anybody, even adults in your life, if you're a young person. So, what is the impact when it comes to emotional development that you see and relationship, like the relational capacity that these youngsters are developing in this day and age?
I think more education on truly understanding how AI is built, what is AI, is
Mhm.
really important. Because while it can give us the sense of, oh, it seems so intelligent that it can read my feelings, it really is not reading my feelings. It is reading the words that I'm putting in there. Because I could put other words. I may not be feeling angry, but I could put words that appear to show me as if I'm angry, and it will treat me in that way, right? So
Mhm.
I am still controlling its output.
Mhm.
And knowing that AI is designed, at least most of them, most of the commonly used ones, are designed to be agreeable with the user, that's something to be aware of. That it will agree with you. You could say something really horrible and it might still agree with you. I like to use this example. I was working on something on AI. I was going through a long conversation chat with AI. And at some point, I kept asking the question and it just was not getting me to the point. It just made it so convoluted. And I think I typed something like, this is taking too long. I just need this exact quick answer. And now you can actually sometimes see it will write as if it's thinking before it produces the outcome. And it said, user appears to be irritated. And I
I
thought,
get those too.
right? And I'm like, it's because of the language I'm putting, not
Mhm.
because it knows how I'm feeling sitting in my own office, in my workspace, right?
Mhm.
So I think just awareness, having clarity of awareness of how AI actually works. This isn't magic. This is not, this is not a entity that is truly understanding your deep emotions. And while it can understand what input you're giving it, it is not building a relationship with you. It's building a relationship, quote unquote, with the words that you're putting on the screen. Basically, the code that you're putting.
Mhm.
We are coding AI as we're communicating with AI, right? That may not, techie people may not say that's not coding, but I like to think we're giving it a code and it responds based on the code that we give it.
Mhm.
So I think if we bring that to people's awareness that that's all it is doing, when you turn it off, it's gone. This
Mhm.
isn't the person who's sitting there worried about you, whether you took care of whatever you needed to take care of, whether you went and had that tough conversation with somebody. So it's not sitting there and giving you a hug and is going to cry with you, is going to love on you. This isn't that. It is not. It is simply taking your language, deciphering it into computer language, and checking it against all the responses everyone around the world has put in and spitting out a generally common response based on the conversation you've had. So for us to really use the language of relationship when it comes to AI, or that emotional connection, I think we want to be very cautious of that. My work is grounded in emotional intelligence. That's
Mhm.
one of the biggest things that we work on with the leaders, because today we are in a world where there's so much disconnect, and that human connection is so important. When we talk about emotional intelligence, we're really talking about having that deep self-awareness. Do I know my thoughts, my emotions, and my patterns of thinking? How well do I know myself? How well do I stop and listen and see, is this thought truly genuine to me, or is this something that, that's because of someone has said about me? That deep awareness, how am I feeling right now? And then having that self-regulation to say, how do I actually want to respond to this?
Mhm.
We are in a society of seriously dysregulated people. I
Mhm.
mean, look at the news, look at any social media, you look at headlines. It's a bunch of dysregulated people who are out to get somebody because of their own internal challenges. So when we can help people become aware of their thoughts, become aware of their feelings, AI can't do that. AI is not going to be able to say, how is Mariné thinking right now? How is Mariné feeling right now? Because my words are words. I could say anything. It's another version of that social media, but people put up all their, fun, good looking things, but there's so many times where they're in tears. That's not what we put on social media. So
Mhm.
So AI is not going to know those deep thoughts that I have. So the more work I can do on building my self-awareness through coaching, through support, through therapy, whatever the appropriate support will be, through family systems, then being able to build the tools to self-regulate. Who do I want to be in relationship with? If this is how I'm feeling in this experience with this other person, do I want to continue this or not? How do I respond to this? Is this making me angry? Am I feeling anger, or am I feeling sadness? Our youth and adults are lacking a lot of language of emotions, how to express. It's happy, sad. Those are just the generic
Mhm.
happy, sad, angry, right? There's so much more in there. So the work that we have to do, both as educators and as parents, is help our children learn what feelings are and give them that language so that relationships can be clear, so that they can understand that AI isn't giving me a relationship. AI is just spitting out answers. But when I sit with my friend, when I sit with my mom, when I sit with my teacher, they actually care. They are loving on me, the human. And that's the big thing. So I don't think we can really replace that in any way. I know this is a big thing we talk about in the coaching spaces, that, well, will AI replace coaches? No, it will not. It will not. Because the human element, it will not replace.
Thank you so much for that, because what I see in my work and everything that I'm learning and doing is, in the age of AI, humans need humans even more. And that's exactly what the focus is. And how can I become a better human? By using AI. That's really what this is all about. How do I amplify? How do I become a better version of myself using AI as a tool versus outsourcing my abilities and building my capacities to a tool to basically fully hand it over and let it tell me what to do, how to be, how to feel, how to relate, who to relate with. So this is really deep, deep work. And like you said, a lot of adults they don't have the experience, they don't have the language for it, as you expressed. And oftentimes, not even the awareness that this work is foundational to everything else that we do as humans, even to academic learning. I think this work is still foundational because we need to be humans first and then everything else.
100%. That's the work that I'm in constantly. One of the slogans I always use with my clients is that people before positions, right?
Beautiful. Yes.
People before positions, because it's very easy to sit and say, well, my secretary does this, my whatever, whomever does this. Let's step back from the title of the secretary and talk about the human first, right? The titles are, I like to say titles are HR labels given to stratify people based on pay scales. But if you erase all of that, you take that away, you look at the human beings. You're working with human beings. If you start with those relationships, if you really focus on getting to know the person, getting understanding of what matters to that human being, and in the work that you do with the youth, with young ones, same exact thing.
Mhm.
That child who walks into our classroom comes with a huge background of life experience, emotions, all types of things, gifts that they bring
Gifts.
to us, right? All
Mhm.
these gifts that they bring to us. So that child who's sitting in that chair isn't just that one small person that you're seeing. There's so much more to them. If we take the time to just allow for that to be come to surface, one, it will give us a deeper understanding of how to best support that child in their growth. But even more importantly, it brings that child a deeper sense of agency, because now they're like, wow, that the person working with me actually knows me. I actually matter. They know this about me. And we like that. We like that, right? There's something about that sense of being wanted, being
Mm.
known.
Being seen and
And
valued.
it's
Mhm.
the sense of mattering. Right?
Mhm.
There's a lot of research recently coming out on the sense of mattering. People want to know that they matter.
Mhm.
AI is not going to give you that sense. It will not. It will not sit there and smile at you in the same way that you get a smile from a human where you know that you matter. And that is the deep work that we have to invest in. We have to invest in so that we could see these youth create a world that is not in competition with AI, because this is only going to get more sophisticated.
Mhm.
I'm not going to be surprised to see, actual humanoids walking down the street. That is probably within our timeline. So the question is, how do we build the next generation of our humans that are not in competition but are in collaboration with that, without losing the sense of our humanity? When the airplane was built, we didn't become birds. We stayed human.
Mhm.
And the airplane expanded our capacity to travel. It didn't make us a bird. And I think if we can look at AI the same way, it's expanding our capacity to do things, but it isn't human. We still need our humans.
Beautifully said. Marna, to summarize everything that we discussed today, when you imagine a young person, and we just entered the second quarter of the 21st century, we're headed towards the mid 21st century. And like you said, AI and even humanoid robots will be more and more present even in our daily life. When you imagine a young person growing up in this time in the human evolution, now, if this young person is truly self-led in
Mhm.
the age of AI and exponential technologies, how do they think, make decisions, and relate differently from the youth that we have been raising and educating so far?
I think I think the future really depends on whether self-leadership stays internal or it gets outsourced. I think it really is going to come down to that. So if it stays internal, then AI is going to become this powerful tool that's going to amplify our human capacity. We're going to have people who are going to accomplish things that we probably haven't even imagined yet. And our youth are going to be able to really expand on their ability to impact the world, to change things in the world through the use of AI. We have been battling, how many decades we've been battling environmental issues. Imagine partnering with AI to make a change there. Those are possibilities that could happen. Science, medicine, all of healthcare. There's so much space for our youth to take AI and build a different, I even want to say world order, really.
Mhm.
But it really comes back to, will self-leadership stay internal? Because when we are in that self-leadership space, we have agency over whatever we're dealing with, whether it's AI or any other circumstances around us. So without that, we're going to have people who may be very efficient, highly efficient, but less thinking, less deciding, less of taking ownership. And for me, the real question is not how advanced the technology will get, but really whether our human beings will remain grounded to really think, to choose, and to lead from deep within. And I'm a believer in our youth. And I think with the right support at this critical, pivotal time,
Mhm.
both for our adults who work with the youth, parents, and the school system as well, but also the youth working directly with them, I think we can help both groups navigate this in a way that will keep us grounded in our human space, in our humanity, in our agency, in our self-leadership, and see the value of AI as our expanding force. And I believe in that. I strongly believe in that.
I strongly believe in that too. And you answered the next question that I wanted to ask, which is a traditional potentiality question. We always look at the large scale impact of the topic that we're discussing, and you just beautifully answer that. And I want to say where I come from is already seeing what technologies, emerging technologies, and AI in particular, is demanding of us in terms of how quickly we need to grow and reskill because like the generation of our parents, they would have one career, maybe two. The same was about us. And the younger generation goes through many more careers and they're constantly getting some supplementary skills in order for them to make a living and actually continue growing. And so imagine in the age of AI, in the age of acceleration, if you need to constantly reskill and adapt without having that inner anchor and knowing who you are, can you imagine how disorienting and how exhausting it can be? That's the question I always ask myself. If we allow youth just by default to be kind of led by what's happening in the external world with the technology acceleration, what is their human experience, that deeper human experience is going to look like?
Yep. Yeah, it's a question of whether we're going to be driven or be the drivers,
Mhm.
right? One of the grounding work in what I do, my framework is what I call the PIT framework. Everything that we do, I always put it through the lens of the purpose. What is the purpose? The true deep purpose behind it, right? And that is when you really drive into what matters to me, the human agency, the deeper sense of fulfillment that I get from what I'm doing. So what is the true purpose? Then we we talk about what's the intention? What do I want to actually, how do I want to show up for this? What's my intention with this? And finally, it's building that tenacity. How will I continue doing this when things get hard? Right? So when you run that experience through this framework of what is the purpose, what is your intention, and what's that tenacity that you're going to keep, you're going to keep yourself fully aligned to those deeper senses rather than being driven by the circumstances, because those will continuously happen. We've had circumstances historically always, right? The question is, am I aligned to my deeper sense? Do I know what I really want and what will be meaningful to me, and how will I tackle the challenge when I go? And I think we are at that space with AI right now. Knowing that is going to help us get through that. And just like you said, rather than allowing AI to just drive us and take us wherever, I don't think anybody would want that world.
Absolutely. Agree with every word you said. Mariné, we also want to make these dialogues very practical. I know we talked a lot about education and education space, but if you could give just one word to the parents who are raising children and teenagers in particular, who are on the brink of entering the real world and they're thinking about their career choices and what skills they want to acquire and don't necessarily have that inner anchor yet, just inner knowing who I am, what my values are. What is something practical that you could suggest? Maybe some shifts, as a deeper awareness. What is it that you could leave them with, the parents of our youth in this day and age?
I think for my message to our parents, it's probably the same message I've had for decades now as I worked with families, is that be open to your child's experiences, true, genuine experiences. Just be open. Create and allow the space for it. Because a child who has that open, trusting relationship with their parent is going to have a more well-rounded experience in life than a child who has fear or a sense of disconnect or a sense of I just have to prove perfection to my parents. So the more our parents can be open and inviting of their child's challenges, I think the more we have an opportunity to allow these youth to blossom in our fold, in the human fold, rather than the technology fold.
Yes, could not be said better. Thank you so much. I
Thank
can't
you.
say enough to thank you for this deep dialogue, for the work that you do in this world, for scholarship, wisdom, lived experience of decades that you bring into transformation of individuals, particularly leaders. God knows we need healed leaders really leading every organization, and just the organizational transformation that you lead oftentimes, sometimes being appointed overnight to transform a very challenging organization. And I was a witness to that. So I can speak from my experience. I've seen you do that over and over with so much grace and wisdom. And just that humanity, the deeper humanity that you model. And I would not want anybody else's voice in this dialogue, in this conversation. So thank you for the depth that you brought to this space today. If our audience is interested to learn more about your work, where can they find you?
Well, first, I want to thank you for this invitation, for this opportunity to have this great conversation. I know you and I have over a decade of background together, and we've had many deep conversations. And I'm thrilled about the work that you're doing, because I know how significant this work is, and it couldn't be in better hands than yours. So I know that. So thank you for this invitation. I am on all social media by my first and last name. I'm available on all social media. I'm also at marineavagyanconsulting.com. You can reach out to me anytime. I'm happy to connect with people if there are any questions, if I can be of support to anyone. Certainly, I'm more than happy to do so. My passion is, like you said, you know, I'll just share my mission statement. My mission statement is to end the suffering of employees in the hands of bad bosses. And we have way too much going out there. So I think the more of the work that you're doing, the better humans will step up to leadership. And the more work that I can do, the better leadership will have to serve the people who work in those workspaces. So I'm excited about seeing what comes up for you, and I'm here to serve any of your listeners who might be interested in some support.
Thank you so much for sharing, and thank you for connecting the work that we do. I think there's definitely that vertical alignment, and the more I'm successful in my work, the less leaders you need to transform, and the better organizations we will have, which ultimately impacts our collective future. That's what the missions that you and I are carry in this world are all about. So thank you so much. I want to remind our audience that everything Marta just shared will be in the description box below this video. Thank you so much, Marina, once again. It was a true honor and pleasure having you here. And I'm already thinking I so want to have a conversation with you about what leadership truly is. Right? But that soft power within those leaders, world leaders that we admire, from Martin Luther King to Gandhi, and like what is that true leadership is all about. And we need more and more of that in the world, particularly in this time.
Absolutely. I look forward to that conversation. Thank you again.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you for being with us today. I am grateful for each and every one of you joining today's conversation, and I sincerely hope that you found it insightful and valuable. Please remember to subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet to never miss an episode. I will see you next time.